Over to you, Paresh, sir. Real life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In Conversation with. In Conversation with is a series of seminars by CASI from New York, where we invite senior management professionals from across all walks of the industry and reach out to them in search of executable advice. Today's session is on sustainability and impact, but today is going to be one of the better ones. I can promise you that we have an audience and speakers from Turkey, Nigeria, India, China, and a few other countries. So before we start the session, I would like to make the introductions. My name is Paresh. I'm a member of the board of directors at CASI Global in New York. We are the world's largest platform for sustainability with a presence across 52 countries. We also run a large volunteering platform with a reach of over 3 million volunteers. So it's our vision and mission to promote sustainability across all the facets of business. Today we have a very important and interesting guest with us, Dr. Heera Lal ji. He's an IAS officer. He works for the health in the National Health Mission. Heera Lal ji, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show, Heera Lal ji. So before we go on to the speaker for the day, the chief guest for the day, Heera Lal ji, and have a presentation from him, I have a small question. And please give me a short answer. Anybody can give me an answer. Please give a very short answer so that we go on and proceed with the speakers for the day. My question is, sustainability is very important. Everybody understands that sustainability important hai. Then why is the world going around in circles? When we do something, when we say plastics, then people ask, what is it to me? When we say health, again, some people will ask, what is it to me? And then we go and do something else. Again, a section of the economy says, what is into me? So we are going around in circles without doing anything concrete. And this is going round and round. So it is just an opinion. I would like to have your opinion. Anyone, please. Richard, would you like to pick that?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So, yeah. Let me try and answer that then. And great to be here. Well, I think for me, one point connected to this is that when we think of sustainability, really it calls for a paradigm shift. I feel that in our prevailing economic system and culture, we have a very sort of short-term focus. We look at sort of the short-term impacts. We look at the direct financial impacts, and we consider certain stakeholder groups such as the company and investors, and that's kind of like our focus. And I guess we're sort of genetically hardwired to have this sort of short-termist view. And I guess in the dim and distant past, this short-termism was sort of a differentiator. When our ancestors in the past were on the verge of being eaten by a ferocious beast, this sort of the short-term the short-termism, this ability to just focus on these threats right in front of our eyes, was clearly gave us an edge. But I guess the point is.
Thank you very much for that, Richard. I completely agree with you. I have been on so many boards. I'm an advisor to so many boards, and yes, the short-termism that we have, basically because of the capital markets, is something that prevents us from going, all towards sustainability. So thank you very much for that. Let's start with the primary speaker for the day. Heera Lal ji, आपका presentation देखने के लिए हम लोग उत्सुक है. आपके ख्यालात बताइए कि सस्टेनेबिलिटी क्या है और आप लोग क्या करते हैं, प्लीज.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to welcome you, and I would like to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to be the part of this international event. And basically, Model Gaon is an idea how to develop Model Gaon in a sustainable mode. Why I'm saying so? Because earlier we developed the things, but that were not the sustainable. That's why later on, United Nations is added a word yes, sustainable before development. Now we are talking about the sustainable development goals. Sustainable development, reason being, earlier development activity, action and procedures were not sustainable. We did more harm than the good. That's why to avoid more harm as compared to good, we are now switched to sustainable development goals. As regards India, India lives in villages. Still 70% people are living in the villages, and we are dreaming to be a developed nation. To realize this dream to be developed nation, if we will not develop our 70% population, it is impossible to realize this dream. So the model now is some total of consequences, outcomes of more than 20 innovations done in a district in 1.5 years. Banda is a district, and I was collector over there for 1.5 years, from August 18 to February 20, around 18 months. In 18 months, I did more than 20 innovations, and all were successful, and that innovations outcome brought name and fame to Banda. And when we put all the results together, we summed up all the results of outcome of all the innovations. That is the model GAO. So model GAO is a tested and tried formula, and model GAO is a tested and tried formula, and it is bottom up approach. And in all the experiments, I applied three things, three tricks. What is? We took, first thing, we took action and activities either no cost or low cost. First trick. Second trick, we pooled the resources, inputs, and funds available. And third thing, we involved all the stakeholders so that they can take the ownership, and so that our approach become the participatory model. So with the help of three tricks, we did more than 20 innovations, and that is the model GAO, the net result of all the 20 outcomes of the innovations. So what is Chalo Gaon ki or? Gaon is the Hindi word, since we are having international guests, so they don't know Hindi. That's why I will mix up the things. Chalo Gaon ki or, meaning their Gaon means villages, village, rural area. Chalo Gaon ki or, that is our slogan. Soch badlo and Gaon badlo. Isko please screen karo. Soch badlo and Gaon badlo. Without changing the mindset, we cannot change the villages. So it is a new idea, new initiative, and new initiative. What is the vision? Our vision is the holistic, all-round development of the village. And one more thing I would like to say, village and urban and rural both have different characteristics. So we do not want to create village into urban area. Village must have its original characteristics. When we talk about the developed village, modern village, smart village, then we always start seeing the same thing what we are having in the urban areas. So urban characteristic we do not want to see in the villages. Villages have their own characteristics. Maintaining the characteristics, symptoms, style, and outlook of the villages, we wish to develop the villages. How we will do? Our mission is we will establish the developmental agenda through a village manifesto, and the people who are social oriented, who are socially active, they will act as the change maker. They will establish the development agenda in the village through village manifesto, meaning thereby right now, if you go in a village, you will not find any demand for the development. There is no demand for the development in the villages. So if you will supply the developmental activity, there is no demand, so it will not work. So first we will create a demand for development through village manifesto and via change maker, and the change maker will be from the villages who is who enjoys in the social activity. We have divided our model Gaon project and program in three parts: village manifesto, change maker, FPO and FPC. In the village manifesto, through village manifesto, we will connect each and every villages, and we will tell them what is the development and what are the 25 development indicators that we will see again. And change maker means the persons who is having social orientation, who is doing selfless work, and we will catch them, we will send them on agri tour, and we will convert them into change maker. And FPC and FPO, farming, agriculture is a business of loss. That's why people are migrating from rural area, from villages to urban areas. If we can convert this loss into profit, if you can change this loss into profit through farmer producer company, then our work will be done. Village manifesto is a handbill, is a 25 points developmental indicators, and through this 25 developmental points, indicators, activities, we will tell the villagers work on these 25. And one more thing I say, agriculture is the best industry and farmer is the best entrepreneur. Why why village manifesto is required? To make the village and villagers rich, to enable them to have their own employment. They will not need to migrate for the search of the livelihood, and it will bring name and fame for the village and villagers. They will be happy and gay, and they will be strong. Motto is Model Gaon wish to reduce the poverty and unemployment of the villages. That is our slogan. These are the 25 points. It is in Hindi. That is Safai. Safai means cleanliness, sanitation. Padhai means education. Dawai means medicine, cure. And we will explain later on. Kamai matlab income generation, electricity, water, employment, marketing, or this communication, organic farming, and independent Gaon, problemless village. And likewise, these are 25 points. These points are there in village manifesto. And right now, if you go in a village and ask any villager what is the development, they don't know. I cannot say that they are not knowing. They are knowing, but their knowledge is not complete. One thing, if you say what are the points on which development activities or action to be done, so they will be able to hardly tell you not more than 5. And in all, we have summarized 25. There is more than 25, but strategically we have given 25 points. With this, we can develop, we can convert a village into a modern village, into a model village, into a smart village. This is a one-pager leaflet, Model Gaon Village Manifesto. In Hindi we say Gaon Ghoshna Pat. We have created a facility. Anybody can create Model Gaon Village Manifesto online free of cost by registering, by giving the data and uploading their photos. Likewise, anybody can create. With this village manifesto, we will go to the villager, we will tell them, and each and every person who is having Android phone, they will develop, they will create their own village manifesto, so that they can, when they will have their own village manifesto with their own photo, they feel elated, they connect automatically with this project and idea. So this is to create demand for the development in the village. So part first village manifesto is to create demand for the development. Now part 2, demand is created. So if demand is created, who will be the driver of the model now? So there are good people, socially oriented people, selfless people living in the village. We will pick them, we will select them, and we will change them into a change maker by agritourism, by knowledge is power. We will empower them by imparting knowledge. How? We will send them to the best practices within a district. They will go in the group and they will learn the best practices. They will come back and they will apply in their villages. Likewise, and we are saying it agritourism, learning by enjoying. Like we go in a mela, we enjoy and we learn many things. After completing the visits in the district, we will send inside the state, thereafter out of state, and thereafter in foreign countries. So the expenditure incurred in such tours, agri-tours, will be pooled and contributed by the participants. So this is the change maker. What we are doing, we are imparting them knowledge, not theoretical, practical knowledge, so that they can learn over there and they come back to practice in their villages. And through this, they will get empowered. The whole village will get empowered. Now, as I said at the outset, agri is a loss-making industry. That's why village and villagers are not taking interest in the farming. Reason being, it is a loss-making enterprise. So we have to think how to convert this loss-making enterprise into a profit-making enterprise. So Government of India changed the law, Company Act, so that farmers of a village can form a farmer producer company. The farmers of a village will come together, they will form a farmer producer company, and they will operate and run that company so that their agri mindset can be converted into agri business mindset. And as a result, what will happen? The loss will convert into profits. So problem will be solved. So, and to promote this FPO activity and FPO formation and FPO operation, Government of India is supporting administratively, financially, and in many ways. This is a very good scheme by Government of India. So in a village whom we are contacting and how we are contacting. In a village, we are contacting the farmers. Already, for example, UP is the big state of India. In UP, already 800 FPOs are formed. So we took these 800 FPOs in our loop. We have conducted thrice webinars. We tried to find out their problems and we tried to connect them with the experts to provide them solution of their problems. So this way we are connecting the farmers of the villages, and we took the contact of the village headman, we called in UP Pradhans, and we are connecting with them through technology on their WhatsApp number, and we are educating about the model now, and we are making a connect. Likewise, there is a scheme, National Rural Livelihood Mission, ICDS. Through NRLM, ICDS, we are connecting the ladies and females of the villages. And our next pillar is, without technology, without startup, we can't do anything. So to e-farmer, e-agriculture, digital agriculture. Already FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations, is doing this thing. So we are trying to catch the BLEs located in the villages. Through BLEs, we will digitize and we will convert our farming into e-farming, farmer into e-farmer, agriculture into e-agriculture. So this way we are trying to reach into the villages. This is in nutshell the pillars with whom we are trying to connect in the villages. Now the question is how to connect with the model gaon. To connect with the model gaon, you go to our site www.modelgaon.org and one can register on it. So one way by to connect with the model gaon is the registration on the model gaon site. Second way to connect is the create your village manifesto. We do have our model gaon mail. You can send us mail. We model gaon is present on all the social media. Join our social media. We do have these mobile numbers, and already we have 3 parts: village manifesto, change maker, and FPC. As per your interest, you can join any part of it. If you are interested in change maker, okay, I am a social leader, I wish to be a social leader, and I am social leader, I wish to practice my social appetite through this site, so you join the change maker. If you are having business mindset, then certainly your choice will be FPC. And if you are having a political leadership type nature, then certainly you will join the village manifesto. So these are the methods to join the village manifesto. And we have now the question is how to start making model village, because start of anything is with the difficulty step. So step first is that you please create your own village manifesto soft copy. How? Go to the site, click on the village manifesto, and then upload your data, upload your picture. You will get a soft copy of village manifesto. Thereafter, you will have to repeat this activity with all the villagers having their own Android phones. In a village, let us suppose a population of the village is 5,000. So at least 500 is having Android phone. So you have to make 500 village manifesto. This will build a atmosphere of election, and in such election, who will win? The winner will be the development of the village, not MP, MLA or Pradhan. In this situation, the winner will be the development of the village, development of the villager. This is the idea. And the second step is that since we have 25 points in our village manifesto, so we want to make in charge of one person of a activity for sanitation. So any person interested in the sanitation, he will be in charge. We will make him in charge of the sanitation, and he will aware, he will motivate, he will inspire, he will teach, he will make to learn whole villagers regarding the sanitation. Likewise, education, if we will have a teacher, so when we will allot the topic, we will keep in the mind his interest and his knowledge. And accordingly, we will allot 25 points to 25 change makers, and each change maker will aware whole villagers regarding that particular point. So what we are trying to do in this concept, first of all, we are trying to create model village, smart village in the mind, in the heart, in the thinking of the persons. Once it will be done, then they will be they will start doing physically. So first of all, we think that model gaon or smart village should be in the software of the body. So this is our motto. So with these two steps, we will start, and many things we do have in our sites, and other steps we will take thereafter. But these are the initial steps to start with. So we have got these awards for this work, and Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog praised us. This is the media coverage. These are the our team. There are 4 Padam Shri awardee who are guiding us. They are all awarded Padam Shri for their agri business, agri activity. And we do have many ex-BCs, one professor from USA, and these are our team. Very learned team is with us, and we are working with them. And these are our partners. These are our connects. This is the site. These are the mobile numbers, social media, and everything to connect with the model gaon. This is the gateway to connect with the model gaon. And one more thing we are highlighting: in India, we do not have the museums of the agriculture. We do have, but few in number, and they are not up to the mark. So if agriculture is so important for the India, initially more than 90%, 70 years ago, at the point of independence, 70 or 50 years back, almost more than 90% population was in rural area. Slowly, urbanization increases, and what happened is still 70% people are living in the rural area, but we do not have the museum, agriculture museum. So we are promoting that, we are awareing, we are trying to bring this issue into focus of the things. This is all, and thank you. In nutshell, this is the model village. The best point is that it is not a top-down model, it is bottom-up model, and all the activity and actions are tested and tried on the ground in 50 degrees Celsius in a district. So this is the customized model for a village. That's why it will get the results. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heera Lal ji, for that excellent presentation. Sir, मुझे 2-3 queries है. एक बात बताइए, ये जो model villages है, model गांव या that's model villages, ये कितना टाइम से चल रहा है इंडिया में?
Actually, इंडिया में तो मॉडल गांव बहुत दिनों से चल रहा, बहुत सारे मॉडल गांव, बट सिस्टमेटिकली वी स्टार्टेड फ्रॉम जनवरी.
Because, you know, I have been in sustainability for a long time now, and ये पहली बार मैंने इतना अच्छी तरह मॉडल गांव को समझा है. This is the first time I really understood the model गांव presentation very well. The 25 factors that you presented, वो जो 25 factor जो आपने present किए, वो बहुत बढ़िया थे. And ये मैंने पहले कभी नहीं सुना कि आपका जैसा नेचर रहेगा, वो हिसाब से आप मॉडल गांव में इन्वॉल्व हो जाइए. So this is the first time I understood that if you are youth, if you are a political leader, whichever way you want to get involved in model village, there is a way for you, and there are 25 factors. So it is an amazing concept here, sir, and I'm sure this will be copied not only in India but सब जगह ये copy हो जाएगा.
One thing I would like to share. I would discuss 2 minutes about the sustainability, because your topic is sustainability. On 5th, Environmental Day was celebrated every day, okay, every year. So the theme of the environment by the UN Environment Program, the restoration of the ecosystem, and they started that if you will not restore in coming 10 years, the frequency of pandemic and calamity will increase. Okay, already we have done too much damage. So sustainability we will have to understand. For example, in India, if we अगर हम कुल्हड़ में चाय पिए तो हम गरीब माने जाते हैं, हम गुड़ की चाय पिए तो हम गरीब माने जाते हैं, और अगर हम कप में चाय पिए तो धनी माने जाते हैं, और अगर हम शुगर का चाय पिए तो धनी माने जाते हैं. जबकि वो बोन चाइना का कप है, हड्डी वाला, जो हमारे लिए नुकसानदायक है। तो जो हमारे लिए नुकसानदायक है उसको तो हमने अच्छा मान लिया, और जो कुल्हड़ और गुड़ वाला हमारे लिए अच्छा है उसको हमने कमजोर। तो हमारा जो अभी हम जो बोन चाइना और शुगर वाली चाय पी रहे हैं, दैट इज नॉट सस्टेनेबल। हमें इसको सस्टेनेबल बनाने के लिए हमें कुल्हड़ पे आना पड़ेगा और गुड़ की चाय पीनी पड़ेगी। बहुत सिंपल है। वी विल हैव टू चेंज आवर थॉट प्रोसेस। हमारे थॉट प्रोसेस में हमने जो नकल की उसको कस्टमाइज नहीं किया, और यही हमसे गलती हो गई।
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Debo Andinei, do we have you online, Debo?
Yes, I'm online.
Yeah, so I'll just repeat. What Heera Lal ji said. मैं इनको बता रहा हूँ इंग्लिश में कि आपने क्या बताया, क्योंकि ये नाइजीरिया से हैं, एंड मुझे इनका ओपिनियन चाहिए यही चीज पे, क्योंकि इनके देश में भी सेम टू सेम चीज हो रही है जो भारत में हो रही है. So Debo, what sir was saying is, in India we forgot our old customs, and we used to have tea in earthen vessels. We used to use jaggery in tea, which is good for health. And we started using sugar and having tea in all this fancy cookware. And now to restore sustainability, we have to go back to our basics of using jaggery and having tea in earthen vessels. And surprisingly, people mistake us for being poor if we use earthen vessels while we have tea. And I have been an avid traveler of Africa, Congo, South Africa, a lot of places, Rwanda, and that is why I wanted your opinion on this, because African countries in India are very similar history of the last 3,000 years, and the changes are also very similar. And now we have to go back to what we originally were to promote sustainability. So, what is your opinion on that, Debo?
Yes, thank you very much. Sustainability, as it were, is a new enterprise in itself, and that is the focus of the whole global community. And I agree with what the last speaker said, and with your interpretation that there is need for all of us to go back to the basics in order to look at practicing sustainably. And I think that is very crucial at this point. For example, in Nigeria, if we look back to the era of engagement in terms of products, what we have been practicing has been a form of circular economy. If you are buying a bottle of Coke, you know that after taking the Coke, you return the bottle, and the bottle is taken back by the producer or the manufacturer, and they refill and resell to you. In the olden days, you won't find a bottle of Coke on the road, because while buying, you have to return it. If you are not returning it, it's either you pay for it, or probably you have some balance to collect from the seller. You may forfeit your balance. In those periods when you want to buy water, there's nothing like plastic bottle water or what have you. Water, you go with your container and buy the water you want to buy. All these plastic bottles you are finding on the road, the traffic, in our malls, in our supermarkets, and all of that, they were not the practice initially. So initially, we are of the practice where the use of bicycle, the use of lorries, let's say coastal buses, or use the use of train. I'm talking about in Nigeria, as was the practice. But in today's environment, everybody now wants to ride his or her own car. We've resorted from the use of using train to commute, interstate wide, international wide, and all of that. Everybody is now riding on his car, which has increased the carbon emission of the state, of the country, as it were. The era where all of us will have to go by the train stand, the era where all of us will have to go to the coastal buses, the luxurious buses, or the mass transit that will take all of us from community to community is evaporating, and the need to go back to those places so as to embrace the use of shared resources. And you know, sustainability in itself is about shared value. You know, it's about shared value. If I use a bottle of Coke and it's sold to another person, I return the bottle is going to find its way into another person's hand. It's shared resources. We circulate resources. The need to go and extract new raw materials to produce another for another product for our needs may not be there at that point. So I think going back to basics, as the last speaker said, is very crucial at this point, and I've been able to back it up with some few examples. I have quite a number of old practices, use of firewood, use of, you know, things that we've been doing and things that have been, you know, really helping us in those days. In fact, the environment has been greener. The environment has been greener. The quality of air we breathe in those periods where we even rely on, you know, fresh vegetables, you know, fruits, and all of that. A lot of us go to the farm, and today we just want to rely on importation and, you know, processed food and all of that. So going back to the basics thing, for me, I think we need to look at those practices and some of the important behaviors that we have embraced over the years. So we can marry it with new way of life and think about how we can improve on some of those bases. Thank you.
Thank you, Debo. Let's go to Richard Betts. If we have Richards here, I'll just make a translation in Hindi for our Hindi viewers. हीरा लाल जी, डेबो का ये मानना है कि आपने जो बताया कुल्हड़ की बात, वो बोलता है वो एग्जैक्ट सही है, क्योंकि अफ्रीकन देशों में भी यही है. एंड वो ये भी बोल रहा है कि जो हम लोग ने मोटरसाइकिलें खरीदी है और कार्स खरीदी हैं, वो जैसे पहले हम बस में ट्रैवल करते थे, शेयर्ड रिसोर्स करते थे, तो सस्टेनेबिलिटी के लिए अच्छा था. तो अभी हम लोग वापस से वही प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, जो पहले कर रहे थे वही कीजिए और सब लोग साथ में ट्रैवल कीजिए, तो सस्टेनेबिलिटी के लिए बेहतर हो जाएगा. तो वो एग्जैक्टली वही बोल रहे हैं जो आप भी बोल रहे हैं कि उनके देशों में भी यही हो रहा है. द सेम थिंग इज हैपनिंग देयर, यू नो.
साधु हम लोगों ने जो अभी मैं एक प्रोजेक्ट बना रहा हूँ साइकिलिंग का, आई हैव स्टडीड 7-8 कंट्रीज साइकिलिंग को. अगर आपको 5 किलोमीटर 5 सेक्टर के हेल्थ, इकोनॉमिक, इस तरह से 5 सेक्टर के 110 फायदे हैं. हमें अगर 5 किलोमीटर तक जाना है तो साइकिल से ही जाना चाहिए. एंड मेनी कंट्रीज आर प्रमोटिंग इट बिकॉज इट इज प्रोवाइडिंग मोर देन 100 बेनिफिट्स इन 6 सेक्टर्स. बट हम लोगों का वो जो है ना माइंडसेट कि अगर हम गाड़ी से चलेंगे तो धनी हो जाएंगे, अगर साइकिल से चलेंगे तो गरीब हो जाएंगे, जो हमारे दिमाग में एक गलत कीड़ा घुस गया है, वो हमें निकालना है.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. Do we have Richard Betts with us? Richard, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Thank
so
you
hi,
very
everyone.
much for being with us today, Richard. Please let us know about your opinion on sustainability. In a sense of time, please make it short so that we can ask you a few more questions. And also, please tell us what's happening in your part of the world, in Turkey, Albania, Romania, Bulgaria. What's happened in sustainability?
Sounds good. Okay, so thanks for that. So let me do that then, and I'll be sort of to the point. So just firstly, and then I can share one or two slides, or try to. In Turkey, then you know, we are seeing a lot of momentum around sustainability now. I mean, for the last 10 years, there has been, you know, quite a lot of activity, but we really see an acceleration over the last 1 to 2 years. So a lot of new initiatives, a lot more momentum. So Turkey is sort of does a lot of trade with the EU, and you know, in the EU there's sort of enormous focus now on sustainability. So that's also having an impact in Turkey. Yeah. Okay. So
share your thoughts also with us.
Yes, let's see if I can share a couple of slides then.
Please.
Okay, so hopefully you can see the screen. Yeah, can I go to, yes, I can. I don't normally use Zoom. Okay, all right. So I'll just spend sort of 7 or 8 minutes then, just giving some context, some international context on sustainability. So firstly, then this is an extract from the latest World Economic Forum risk report, which comes out every year. Every year, the World Economic Forum talks to experts around the world to understand what are considered to be the top risks to the economy over the next 10 years. And they've been doing this for sort of the last 10 to 15 years. And what we've seen in the last sort of 2 to 3 years is that there's been a big change in what the key risks to the economy are now perceived to be. So, in the early years of these studies, there were a lot of traditional risks. You can see actually in the early years on this page some sort of blue risks, sort of economic, financial risks. But you can see how the colours have changed in the last few years, and how now, according to experts globally, most of the top risks to the economy, and indeed to all of us, to humanity, are now considered to be environmental risks. And this kind of connects to the point I started to make when we, in the example I was giving earlier on sustainability. We've had this short-term focus that's sort of been successful. That was successful previously, but I think we have this growing realization that the nature of the risks now facing us, now facing the economy, now facing business, now facing all of us, are fundamentally different, because now the top risks to a large extent are these sort of systemic risks, such as around climate change. And you see here also, this is another extract from a World Economic Forum risk report. You can see how there are a lot of interconnections between the top risks. You can see how different risks map to many other risks. Lots of interconnections between climate change and biodiversity loss. You also see on the left infectious diseases, which also maps to many other things. So, I think a key point is that in our sort of prevailing, what we've tended to do in our sort of prevailing, in our sort of prevailing economic sort of model approach, civilization, we've tended to look at things with a short-term lens and in isolation. And in many ways, it's kind of been pragmatic. As I said, I think we're genetically hardwired to look at things in this way. And in the past, we could get away with it because there were far fewer people, and our collective footprint was much smaller than it is now. So in these, in recent decades, there's been this huge growth in population, and even more so in terms of the size of the global economy. And so as a result, our collective footprint then is now much greater than ever before. And so, the basic situation has changed. So what worked in the past no longer works, can no longer work, because now we're in a situation where our collective footprint is so big that we're starting to exceed planetary boundaries. And that's sort of, I think, a key message here, really. So as we see, we live in a heavily interconnected planetary system, a globalized economy, heavily networked world, and the top risks facing us then are systemic risks, and hence to sort of try and tackle those risks, to be effective, we're not going to get very far by looking at things in isolation as climate or as health or as biodiversity. We'll only be looking at one part of the picture. So really, to try and tackle these things, we're going to have to look at them together. So to tackle systemic risks, we're going to need systemic responses, systemic solutions. And you also see there, as I touched on, infectious diseases maps to sort of biodiversity, climate change. So a lot of interesting scientific studies that have come out making the sort of connections between a pandemic, pandemic risks, such as what we've all experienced over the last year or so with COVID, and how under the current trajectory, then pandemic risk is set to increase due to increased nature and climate-related risks. So again, we must do a much better job really at sort of joining the dots between all these different risks, looking at them together. So we are faced with these a fundamentally different risk landscape to what the perception was just a few years ago, but now a lot is starting to happen. So here, and this is changing on a regular basis, here you see sort of a recent analysis of where countries are in terms of committing to decarbonize their economies, move to net zero. The science is telling us that we must fully decarbonize our economy by mid-century at the latest in order to avoid the worst of impacts of global warming. And over the last couple of years, we've seen a flurry of countries from all around the world committing to decarbonize their economies, move to net zero, and so we've recently had the UK, the EU, the US, Canada, China, South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, and some leading South American countries, plus many smaller economies from around the world committing to net zero. And some of these countries, such as in the UK, have then moved to sort of enshrining this within legislation. So this is kind of like a response to tackling the climate threat that we're all faced with. Huge momentum in this area, and we can expect to see other countries, I think, following suit in the near future. And it's not just at the country level. So many companies are also committing to decarbonize their operations and moving to net zero, something that we have also done recently, and by 2030. So there's a lot of activity in this area, and to be effective, obviously it's great to see these pledges. Great to see countries and companies trying to align with the science with these long-term targets, but then really to be effective, it's going to be essential that there are clear implementation plans. So it's great to have a long-term target, but to be effective, it needs to be, and to be credible, it needs to be backed up by shorter-term milestones for how a country, a sector, a company is going to get to that long-term vision, so that the company and other stakeholders can all then scrutinize the progress towards that target. So that's also essential then. Great to have the long-term target, great that it's aligned with the science. To be effective and to be credible, it must be backed up with shorter-term targets. It's not just climate change. There's also huge momentum now around natural capital. Science is making really clear that biodiversity loss is also a major risk globally. And we're seeing huge momentum really building in this area. Many very significant initiatives starting to come through. You see some extracts there. I won't go into them all due to time. Maybe just to sort of pick out one. Last autumn, an initiative was launched for the TNFD, Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, to develop a first framework to sort of establish the metrics for nature, so that we can start to move the flows of finance to activities that are net positive for nature. So what you see there is the initial scoping paper that was published recently, and now there's a 2-year consultation to develop the actual framework. And this has been something that's been worked on by about 70 global organizations, a handful of governments, many leading banks, and then a handful of companies from other sectors such as ourselves. So a great deal of momentum then in the area of natural capital. And my last slide, and then I'll be very happy to sort of move this to discussion and any questions, is again, I think we've got to get away from this silo thinking. So yes, we need to tackle climate change. Yes, we need to tackle biodiversity. Yes, we need to look at them together and take a systems approach. But other scientific studies have also shown us that what's really critical is that we strive to thrive within the sort of the boundaries of our planet. And what the science has identified are these sort of, these range of about 9 areas then, and these sort of these planetary boundaries, which in order for us to be prosperous, we need to sort of stay within. So you can see there, we need to sort of focus on dealing with climate change, also biodiversity, but then there are sort of other very significant issues we need to sort of really have a strategy for, such as ocean acidification, etc., etc. So okay, let's. I just wanted to give a quick overview, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Richard. The last slide was very well made. I have a question. You mentioned in the beginning that we need to work on the enterprise risk management for sustainability, and there are a lot of research reports floating in that sustainability is actually enterprise risk management, and then you should work in the entire supply chain and the value chain. Now, my question is, see, the background is that I have been a professional board member. So I sit on many boards and I'm an advisor to many board of directors. So my problem is there are a lot of 2% businesses, businesses which make a net of 2 to 3%, 4% tops. And then there are businesses which are 16, 18, 20% range. So in the businesses where, it's a 2%, 4% business, I can't really afford to use enterprise risk management systems. Otherwise, I will end up using my entire profits as insurance. Then I'll have to shut down those businesses. And it would not be possible to shut down those businesses in the name of sustainability because we employ thousands and thousands of people. See, these are old economy companies. They are 2% businesses, but they are still there and we need to employ people. So how do you draw a line between ERM, for the 2, 3, 4% type of businesses? What is your suggestion to them?
I think the key point that this is kind of getting at is that these issues that we're faced with, like sort of tackling climate change, they are these systemic risks, and hence to deal with those effectively, we need a systemic response, and that means that in isolation, companies cannot be effective in dealing with climate change because they're only one actor in the system. So companies can play a role, governments can play a role, the general public can play a role, etc., etc. And so everyone needs to sort of be working together on this. And so I guess when we think of like low carbon solutions, for example, at present, a lot of those carry, not all, but a lot of those carry very significant sort of green premiums, which means that if yes, a lot of companies may want to do something, but it may not be sort of financially viable for them at the moment. And hence, what's also needed then is for sort of other stakeholders, for example, governments working with universities to help bring those green premiums down so that, more companies can invest in them. So I think it shows how, systemic risk needs a systemic response. We all need to work together on this. We all have a role to play.
Thank you very much for that. I suppose that's an ideal answer. So that we put the brunt of the work on everyone and not only the companies. But I respect that answer because it makes us less of a villain, So as a board member, that's all I can do. I can't do much on these companies. But thank you very much for that. Before we go on to our next speaker, last speaker for the day, Vittal Kumar Dhage Saab. Let me welcome Hayden and Patrick and Ushaji to today's event. Thank you very much for joining us, Hayden, Patrick, Ushaji. We are
one more thing I would like to request Mr. Munish Gangwar, President Madalgaon is there. So he is hearing you, and I think he is very rich. He is having experience of rural development more than 45 years. So you must take his expert in 1 minute. He is retired CGM NABARD. He is there.
Munishji, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being with us. Munishji, quickly आप बताइए आपके क्या ख्यालात हैं? And हमारे बहुत सारे दर्शक हिंदी में भी है. मेरे 10 लाख से अधिक students है. We have over 1 million students in India who are listening to this show on our learning management system. So we are very okay with Hindi, English, whichever
No,
way.
I have no issues with the English or Hindi.
नहीं नहीं, हमारे स्टूडेंट्स सर हिंदी में सुनना चाहेंगे क्योंकि वो इंडियन है और गांव-गांव में मेरे स्टूडेंट्स हैं.
हाँ, तो मैं बहुत
Yeah.
थोड़ा समय, I'll take very short time.
Please tell us your
Yes.
opinion, sir.
Regarding, you have been talking about the sustainable development, so a question was popping up in my mind, because sustainability probably requires, as we were listening to the other speaker, the cooperation of the people. Maybe it is a localized society, or internationally we can talk about sustainable development, but then people have to cooperate. But then the question is, in this competitive market, where the market is driving the economies, whether people will really cooperate with each other for sustainable development, in the sense that a benefit of someone may be the loss of the other person. Naturally, there is a conflict of interest. If a country is producing something and they are selling it to me, and suppose I develop a substitute locally, naturally that is a loss to the other country which was so far supporting exporting it to me. So this kind of no conflict of interest probably are the basic fundamental stumbling blocks in the sustainable development, as I see. Maybe that it's a debatable issue. But then, sir, when we were talking about the model gaon, I'll talk about the basic presumptions as to why our villages have not developed so far, even after 70 years of various development interventions by the governments, maybe the central government in India and the state governments, because we found that the schemes which are being superimposed from the above on the rural areas, maybe they must be having the presumption that they are beneficial for the people in the villages. But then the issue was that the villagers, the recipients, the beneficiaries were never allowed to be the part of the either the decision making or even the implementing part of it. So unless we really involve people who are the beneficiary of those schemes, unless they becomes the owners of those schemes, unless they becomes the stakeholders, primary stakeholders of those schemes, probably schemes will not succeed. This was our basic presumption. From here we started to go into a whole hog way to mobilize people and tell them that you at your level think about as to what the development you are demanding, or you need kind of development, make a demand for that, and impress upon the governments to frame the schemes as per your needs and requirements. That was our basic presumption, and on this presumption we are working in the villages or with the villagers. So this is what was the basis of structuring this entire project of Model Gaon. I think there are many speakers here, and it is really a wonderful discussions here. So I would like to be the beneficiary of those discussions instead of talking much about it. Thank you very much, Paresh ji, to giving me this opportunity with international speakers and viewers. And I'll definitely be benefited by all those discussions which are going on here. Thank you very much.
Hey, Munish ji, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the thoughts. I will definitely reach out to you again for a lengthier discussion on your thoughts. But two things. One, your all-encompassing approach, which you just mentioned, सबको साथ में लेके चलना है. That is absolutely correct. If we do not involve all the stakeholders, then progress would be very difficult. But about your geopolitical issues, which you spoke about, that a country may suffer because another country may produce something. Let's reach out to Hayden. If Hayden is here, Hayden is a policymaker from Trinidad and Tobago. He was the chief executive officer at the Securities Exchange Board, so he has been a policymaker there. I would love to hear Hayden's opinion on geopolitical issues before we go on to the last speaker of the day.
Thank you, sir.
Is Hayden here?
जी.
Hayden, thank you very much for being with us. A quick summary on geopolitical issues. What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, very interesting program this morning, folks. That is a real and live issue. I mean, on the issue of sustainability, for example, there's a sort of prime example of the impact of geopolitical challenges and awkwardness between nations. For instance, in Trinidad, right next to us, there's Guyana, which has sort of very recently been the beneficiary of substantial oil fines. So they're kind of late in the game, and they have this opportunity to sort of very quickly develop their economy that's been lagging for years. So the difficult choice they face, for example, is do I give up this opportunity? How do I manage this situation to ensure that my country and my economy benefits from this tremendous oil fine? And at the same time, how do I contribute tangibly to the very important sustainability goals? Very, very important. That would be very important to me and to the world at hand. So I think that's a very good example of the challenge that geopolitical conflicts and crises may present to countries.
Thank you, Hayden, for that. Yes, that there is no easy answer when it comes to geopolitical issues. Let's go on to Vithalji for his thoughts on sustainability. Vithalji, if you could please tell us in the next 4 or 5 minutes about sustainability. We'll still have 5 minutes for a question answer session.
Wonderful. Let me just present my slides, which I prepared exclusively for this event.
Please. And I'm looking forward to asking you questions, sir.
Wonderful. Is my slides visible?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful presentation by Heera Lal ji about the model village, that really solves migration issues, to urban centers. So, urbanization, industrializations are typically the reasons for all the sustainability issues and the ESG issues that we are going through. So it's an excellent presentation, Heera Lal ji. I'm thoroughly, relished your presentation. Thank you very much. So probably I will cover next part of it, because industrialization still causes, a lot of emissions, a lot of social issues. So probably in a scenario where we have large corporations are so large that their market capitalization is more than the GDP of hundreds of small countries put together. So in today's realities of floods, droughts, hurricanes, the impacts of climate change, as the name itself suggests, changing the world order. Obviously, the population is impacted, the civil societies, non-profits are demanding actions, from the global businesses and the corporates alike. So in a world which is going through unprecedented transformation today, decarbonization, decentralization, and digitalization, so there arises a need for a new norm led by changing customers' need, environmental risk, and the diverse governance issues. So hence, to me, ESG is an intersection of environmental, social, and corporate governance. The three broad categories of areas of interest for what is termed as socially responsible stakeholders. So they are stakeholders who consider it important to incorporate their social values and environmental concerns into their selection of investments, instead of simply considering the potential profitability or the risk presented by an investment opportunity. So it is used to be people, planet, and profits, but now it is people, planet, and purpose beyond the profits. So facing a VUCA world, with a purpose. Okay. Now something dramatically added in 2015, the purpose, as I was talking in the first slide, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are United Nations shared vision of humanity and a social contract between the world leaders and the people to be achieved by 2030. So this agenda of SDGs was adopted unanimously in by 193 heads of the state and the top leaders in a summit in UN headquarters in sometime in 2015. So SDGs typically are the to-do list for the people and the planet and a blueprint for success. So over 17 goals, which has 167 targets, to wipe out the poverty, the fight inequality, then tackle climate change over the next 15 years. So the model village that Heera Lal ji presented typically provides us the opportunity of the SDG 1, 2, 5, and many more of them, 11, many more of them. So it's a wonderful example of how sustainable goals can be achieved, a purpose for humanity. So going to the next slide. However, in whatever we are doing, the nature has its own course, right? The world continues to warm as a result of increasingly concentrated human-induced greenhouse gases being put into the atmosphere. So the global warming is causing temperatures to increase, sea levels to rise, and more frequent and intense extreme weather events that is happening all around us. So this is what the climate change all about. The name itself says it's a change. So under the United Nations, once again, humanity convened in Paris in 2015, another unprecedented event, and the outcome was called the Paris Agreement. Almost 200 countries pledged to control the greenhouse gases emission to limit the global warming below 2 degrees centigrade or preferably 1.5 degrees centigrade compared to the pre-industrial levels. So following this Paris Agreement and the growing public and regulatory pressures, brought the matter to the top of the corporate agenda. So Pareshji was, telling me that, this is one of the agenda that he frequently advises. So the companies understood that managing the risks and the opportunities arising from the climate change now is a crucial, to becoming the future proof. Most importantly, the risk proof. As a resultant commitment, 177 companies have signed a business ambition for 1.5 degrees centigrade, which is only our future. This campaign has really, taken, forward in the business world. Now, coming to the next slide, the ESG concerns were known much earlier to 2015. And here is a nice illustration of how they evolved. So back in 80s, we used to call them of EHS, right? So it is basically used to take concerns of the employees and some of the environment regulations, basically driven by the regulations. And then sustainability came in 90s. Once again, it's regulation driven, for the environmental reasons. Then it changed its version to corporate social responsibility sometime in 2000 and 2010. Currently, it has taken the shape of environmental, social, and governance, ESG. It's a holistic, way of looking at it. ESG often used interchangeably with the corporate social responsibility or corporate sustainability. However, ESG encompasses much more as a mitigating climate risk. Because climate risk is proved to be the existential risk criteria, both short-term as well as long-term. So there is a physical impacts risk that associated with climate change, as we all seeing. It is changing weather, flooding, drought, which physically troubles, villages or towns or, businesses. And there are risks related with the transition, which is, transition towards a lower economy. So there could be policy changes, legal regulatory changes, technology would change, the market would change. So there could be a carbon taxation. So these are all the transition, risk. So hence these risks are systemic and threaten the stability of the financial markets and will become everyone's and every company's problems, to some extent or the other. So hence ESG concerns are growing as more of the millennial generation are adding to the total pool of investors. So they are demanding action. Moving on, last couple of slides, I would like to present some scenarios about India-specific ESG developments and results. Starting with environmental. So India made 3 major commitments, towards the Paris Agreement through its nationally determined contributions. We call it as indices, to be contributed or to be achieved by 2030. So we said we will reduce India's emission intensity of GDP by 33 to 35%. Below 2005 levels by the year 2030. And second commitment was, we said we will reduce our fossil fuels and enhance the non-fossil fuels renewable energy investments, and we will make it 40% of our installed electrical capacity. And third, we will create an additional sink, a carbon sink, where we will encourage more forests, more plants to be put, which will absorb some 2.5 to 3 gigatons of carbon dioxide. And now we're developing large economy like India, and yet to peak its emission, has committed to raise its renewable energy capacity to a whopping 450 gigawatt by 2030. So no other country has committed something like this. So this helps majority in achieving 2 of the 3 indices, right? Emission intensity, as the energy sector contributes more than 92% of all our CO2 emissions from the country, as well as enhancing the fossil fuel energy resources, the 2 of the indices. With respect to the first emission intensity target, an interim assessment shows that we already about to reach the target of reducing our carbon intensity, which is hovering around 30% at the moment. And the second and the most important is about our ambition to add 175 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2023. And we are already there at around 139 gigawatt as on today. So India is doing tremendously well because energy transition is a daunting task, but being unprecedented new possibilities to revitalize economies, it creates more opportunities. You lift people out of poverty. So energy transition will drive economic transformation. So it's a natural, it's a known thought. So naturally, an engaged government, would demand an equally engaged corporates towards ESG, right? So the many private companies have public company customers. So, and a pressure creates for the public companies to report more and more to address the supply chain in helping them achieve the net carbon zero carbon energy goals. So the private companies will need to address the ESG issues altogether. So the recent SEBI mandate of ESG reporting through BRSR to the top 1,000 companies is an example of an activated government, how it can demand action from private and public companies. Okay, this is my last slide. I just want to leave you with a thought that the ESG matters, because of companies with good ESG practices have a lower cost of capital, a better operational performance, and a better share price performance. So ESG performance is part of that competition for capital. Everybody is vying for capital, right? So companies that take ESG seriously benefit from a greater attraction and retention of employees. That's one of the very important point. And at some point, every publicly listed organization, will more than likely to report some form of the ESG information as investors demand it. So I would like to conclude as the risk and opportunity are like two-sided coins. So there are going to be some situations that are negative about weather events, climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, use of plastic, Paresh for your question. But more and more people are seeing opportunity and respect to ESG, creating more products which are newer, developing new materials, creating new business models, finding new ways to get a product to the market. So the financial market is at the heart of an essential shift to move the sustainable development based on a more inclusive and sustainable economy. So that is what I would like to conclude. Paresh, back to you.
Thank you very much, Vittalji. We come to the end of our show. We have time for 1 or 2 questions. If anyone had a question for speakers, for viewers, This would be the time. Richard, Debo, anyone? Any questions, please? Usha ji. Super. Then I have a question. My question, Vishal ji, is you mentioned about climate change. Yeah. So I understand.
Your voice is suddenly gone down.
Yeah. Now it's okay now.
Okay. Now it's okay.
Yeah. So we are talking about model villages. I understand. India is in villages, 70%. We need to work on the villages. I understand manufacturing. I understand large companies. Now tell me something. My question is, why should, and I'm not saying this is my opinion. Please don't get me wrong. I'm asking, why should a country like India be bothered about climate change when there are 21 different things which we should do in order for the basic roti kapda makan thing, So I would like 50 crore Indians to have food, and then I would like them to have education, and then I would like to have them to have jobs, in priority. So why should, for a country like India or any other developing country, climate change be top priority?
Chennai went through a rough patch of water availability. Do you remember, Paresh?
Yeah, correct.
Chennai again went through a flooding kind of a situation. Do you remember, Paresh?
Yeah, correct.
So there are many such examples, where a developing country is the most affected. Because developed countries, have had their share of carbon emissions put into the atmosphere, and this carbon is causing a phenomenal, climate reactions. So it is going to be Bangladesh which is being impacted. It is going to be countries like India which is going to be impacted, because we are not thoroughly not prepared for such situations. So the sufferings would be high here. You will be much more, pushed into poverty. I think COVID is a very classical example, Paresh, where this zoonotic virus that we say, it is directly has come out because of the loss of biodiversity, loss of habitat. I'm sure Richard would add to my question that the way the virus has, there are millions of viruses.
Yeah, but my question is, see, the advanced countries got 100 years to cut trees and make roads. Yeah. So now when I want to make roads, people are saying climate change. Yeah, but you got 100 years to cut trees and make roads. So now I need 100 years to cut trees and make roads. And in year 101, we will talk about climate change. Because if I do not make roads, then what about the 1.5 billion people who stay in this country? So I'm not saying, again, this is my opinion. I'm just asking, is this
right.
the right thing to do when Patrick cut roads for 100 years and I did not? And now he has all the roads possible. I don't have roads in my country, and now you stop me from cutting roads. So how does it really work? What's your opinion?
Richard, you want to respond?
Yeah, so let me just add to that then. I think that is it's a question we often hear. I'd say, we should listen to the science, and the scientists are telling us that climate change, also biodiversity loss, these are potentially existential threats to humanity. And it touches on the point I made earlier, that what worked in the past when there were far fewer people and when our footprint is much smaller, can no longer work now in this new reality with around 8 billion people on the planet. We cannot continue in the same way. We're exceeding planetary boundaries. We can thrive, we can be successful, but the only way we can do that is by rapidly moving to a sustainable economy.
Thank you very much for that. I think Usha ji has a question. Usha ji, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand, just like we have an index for human development, is there an index going forward for ESG amongst countries? It's for all the panelists, Vitalji in specifically.
Yes, yes. Very recently, India-specific index has been launched by CRISIL, Shaji. And I was just, referring to that. There are some 225 Indian companies, have been assessed, based on different parameters that they report. So like that internationally, there are many S&P and FTSE. There are, many indexes that are available. But for India specific, you can refer to the CRISIL report. I hope it answers.
Thank you, Vitalji, for that. Patrick, I'm sorry I took a name. Do you have a question, Patrick?
I don't know if I have a specific question. I think I've agreed with a lot of the comments made about the complexity and so on that's been mentioned, but I think everybody mentions the complexity, but then I still think the way that the complexity is described, it becomes very detailed very quickly. Climate change, biodiversity, and I still don't see how the solutions are sort of considering everything. Climate change people are all windmills and solar panels, just change the energy. There's no real risk assessment about the specific projects, I feel. The mining issue, that's all that's needed for batteries, for solar panels, the windmills, that is hidden away when you talk about climate change. So yeah, I think it's good that that is mentioned today, but I still don't see how that is really respected and understood in a way that makes any big change. So I don't know if that's a question or more like a statement.
Yeah. Can I comment on that?
So please, Debo,
Yeah.
Richard, please.
Yeah, let me comment, and then maybe someone else would like to say something. I think that's a good point, and for me, everything kind of connects back to my earlier point around changing the paradigm, moving to sort of we need to look at the system, and I think we haven't been doing that really. We've been looking at things in isolation. So we have a sort of a climate strategy, and which kind of maybe connects to renewable energy and one or two other things. But we keep looking at things in isolation. Even with ESG, everything is kind of compartmentalized. But what we're starting to see is, this sort of realization that what we're talking about is sort of, core business. These are sort of business critical issues, and hence to tackle them, we need to sort of be integrating, climate and other sort of and ESG more broadly across business, across functions. We're not going to be very effective if we just sort of look at it in one part of the organization. So, we see a lot of initiatives, and this is clearly in progress. We're at quite an early phase, but nevertheless, there is a lot of activity now with a lot of initiatives trying to sort of embed sustainability across organizations. And I think that gives us, there's a lot of untapped potential there to really do much more, because until quite recently, in most cases, again, it's been something that's been done in sort of, we've been working in silos. So we've been thinking about climate change in maybe just one part of the business, but not in terms of what it means for, for other parts of a business or other parts of society or other sectors. And there's so much, untapped potential really by sort of looking at the intersections with other areas. These are systemic risks, huge interconnections, and there's so much more that we can be doing in these areas.
Just to add, Paresh, if I'm allowed, Patrick, essentially, if plastic waste is causing floods in Mumbai, because it got stuck in channels of rivers and everything. So, I see an opportunity of, stopping plastic and then finding an alternate, to use plastic. If hurricanes are caused because of the climate change, then I see a possibility of addressing that. So there are many matters, that humanity is changing today. I mean, humanity is being challenged today. I see an opportunity there. The meat production, the industrial meat production, is one of the highest costs, biggest polluters, we put in methane directly into atmosphere, which is a greenhouse gas. So we see a business opportunity of plant-based proteins. So people who are looking for newer area of investment, they appreciate these developments, and then they look for because oil is no more an attractive investment. There are no thermal power plants being built, so no investors are funding or providing capital for such large thermal power plants. Now the blue-eyed boys, the solar and the wind and such renewable energy technologies, which are able to attract investments of billions of dollars because of the ESG factors that they weigh in. So,
Debo, what is your opinion on this?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I think I took my time to listen to all parties, and it's been a wonderful and interesting conversation. I must add at this point that sustainability, ESG, is very essential in everything we do, especially in the area of operational efficiency, in the area of sustaining the economic viability of organizations in this regard. I must add that sustainability will create the balance between environment, equity, economy, and as it were. And the same thing with ESG integration across organizational functions, sustainability integration across organizational DNA when it comes to our business operations, when it comes to business activities. I think Richard said a lot in terms of integration. And integration in this capacity is very, very crucial. We need to really assess where we were in order to, where we are, in order to know what we need to do so as to meet up with our future goals, assessment on our performance on environmental areas, on social areas, on governance areas. I think people really need to really take this seriously. The environmental aspect, what are we doing in terms of climate change? How are we reducing our greenhouse gas emissions? How are we managing resources? In terms of waste and pollution, what are we doing? In terms of water, efficiency, energy efficiency, our engagements, our approach to biodiversity, deforestation, and so on and so forth. We can balance it with social areas in organization. What are the working conditions for our employees? Do we have suitable working conditions? Are we providing equal opportunities for personnel? In terms of human rights, our products, our services, does it violate the rights of people the product is meant for? In carrying out our business activities, are we violating the right of our people or our employees or the people from the outside? The employee diversity, the issue of health and safety is very key in the social area. The issue of child labor, slavery, forced and compulsory labor in carrying out our business activities. They've talked about risk in various capacities. These are things that can, expose organizations to all forms of social risks, environmental risks. Then community engagement, I must mention, is very critical at this point. That is stakeholders engagement, engaging internally, engaging externally. The community in which we operate, are we doing more? Are we doing much? Then we shouldn't neglect the governance area. I've talked about environmental, social, the governance area, the business ethics in itself is very key. The executive pay, board diversity and structure. We look at various code of corporate governance as regards various sector, industry specific or national specific and all of that. Bribery and corruption in organization is key to look at it. Political lobbying, donation, then tax. Are we paying our taxes? Are we evading taxes? What is our tax strategy? These are essential topics to look at in the governance area. Then the issue of compliance. How are we compliant in terms of relevant local, global, industry-specific standard regulations, policies, frameworks, and so on and so forth. So the era that we now start looking at integrating this triple bottom line element, environmental, social governance, into whatever we do, into our organizational DNA in terms of business activities and business operations is very crucial at this point. And not only businesses, individuals need to embrace in our thinking, systemic thinking, organizational systemic thinking, individual systemic thinking. By the time we start thinking sustainably, then while engaging even at home, we'll be applying some of these principles. We'll look at some of the international principles, local principles, international principles like the United Nations Global Compact, and principles we can look at principles for responsible investment in terms of investment, in terms of risk management. We can look at even ISO 1000 in its old self. We can look at the Equator principles. It's very good for risk management and a lot
Debo, what is the number one priority in Nigeria within the ESG or the SDGs? What is the number one priority?
Yes, the priority of the government, most especially, has been poverty eradication. The poverty, Nigeria, as it were, according to, I think, the international rating is that Nigeria is like the poverty capital of the world, where the level of poverty here is second to none. And I think the government is really working holistically around the clock in seeing how the poverty figure can reduce by launching various social programs. Programs that revolves around employment of youth, programs that has to talk about giving stipends to the graduates in ensuring that they are being paid some stipends in order to cushion the effect of poverty. Then climate change too. Government is looking at in that area. The government has promised the United Nations that in the next United Nations General Assembly that we will have planted 25 million trees so as to reduce the level of carbon emission in country carbon emission. So in Nigeria, the priority is there. In terms of SDG, the SDG number one, no to poverty, hunger, food security, all those things are key. Then the private sector, I must mention, they are trying as much as possible because they are now being driven. I must say that the private sector is now being driven by various drivers. For example, for you to get international loan or you need investors to invest in your product or services, they now request that where is your sustainability policies, what's your sustainability strategy? We can't put our funds in your business if it is not sustainable. So businesses are now running etasketa in various capacities to say, no, this is the time for us to integrate. Even the regulators, for example, in the banking sector in Nigeria, the CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, said commercial banks should transit from traditional banking regime to sustainable banking regime by giving them guidelines and launching in 2012 the Nigerian Sustainable Banking Principles. That these principles have been given to you towards integration. For financial sector now, they are moving towards it. Recently, there is now release of the Nigerian Sustainable Financial Principle by the one of the regulators too.
Debo, in essence of time, I will have to do a hard finish, but I'm very interested in this financial business on sustainability because some of our audience here are very senior finance professionals like Usha ji. She's a very senior finance professional. So I will catch up with you online between me, you, and Usha ji for this financial principles. What all are we doing? So I would like to call it a day. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you, Vitalji. Thank you, Richard, Debo, Patrick, everybody, and a special thanks to Heera Lal ji for being with us today evening and sharing his thoughts. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure to be.